voters. For over 100 years, the League has been a nonpartisan, activist, grassroots organization that believes that voters play a crucial role in our democracy. Nationally, we have hosted hundreds of events and programs each year to educate voters about candidates in federal, state, and local races. We are a combined league with Walpole and Dedham. Our membership is open to all women, men, and youth over the age of 16. We are very fortunate to have all candidates running for local office today in attendance. Thank you, candidates, for your willingness to serve and give back to your community. Some additional thank yous before we begin. Thank you to Judy Barrington, who is not able to be with us today. She's not feeling well, but she took a lead role in organizing this forum today. Thank you. Thank you to Margaret Copey, who is our moderator today, and she hails from Lexington. Thank you to the Westwood Media Center in the back room there, who came today to tape this event, but will also broadcast it tomorrow. I want to thank the League members Emily Bailu, Marcia Hirschberg, Claire Galkowski, and Steve Olenoff, who helped plan or serve here today as timekeepers or distributors of index cards for community questions. And just so that you're aware, there's Marcia in the back, but we have index cards, pens available. So if you do have candidates for any of these three offices, library trustee, school committee, or select board, feel free to write a question. Okay? And if time permits, we'll answer as many questions as we can. And a special last thank you to all of you who have come here today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sheila. It's nice for me to be here today. I'm looking forward to today's debate. So let me just make a few comments before we get started. Please, everyone, turn off or mute your cell phones. I had to do mine too. The candidates will speak in alphabetical order. They will have 2 minutes for opening statements, 1 minute to answer questions, or 1.5 minutes. I guess we're going to be a little loose on that, I think. Are we? and 1 minute for closing statements. All candidates will answer every question, so there could be no specific question that goes to, say, one candidate. And if a rebuttal is needed, I'll judge whether that's needed or not, and we'll let them know. So you just pay attention. Usually they aren't. And let's see if there's anything else I want to tell you before we get started here. And then the questions will be answered we'll rotate the answers, and then the closing statements will be in reverse order. And before we get started, I just want to acknowledge the timekeepers sitting here in the front row with these bright green things. And what do you have written on those cards?
So it's a 30-second countdown, 15-second, and time. So usually we do 2 minutes for the opening statement, 1 minute for each question, because you each get a question, and then it's usually the 1.5 minute as a closing. We give you
we told them 1 minute for closing, so yeah. All right, thank you. So with that, we're going to start with the candidates for library, and they are Wendy Hickey, Melissa Morabito, and Maureen Von U. Thank you. So we'll start with Wendy. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this today and for inviting us all to attend. My name is Wendy Hickey. I live on Sunrise Road here in Westwood with my husband John and my 3 children. I have 13-year-old twins and an 11-year-old. I've lived in Westwood since 2007. I am running for library trustee for 3 reasons. I believe strongly in public service, And now that my children in the fall will be heading off to high school and middle school respectively, the need for someone to volunteer at the Sheehan School is going to fall to somebody else instead of myself. I did serve as 5 years for the Sheehan School PTA. I also did the Sheehan School Directory for 4 years. I've done a lot of work on the yearbooks for the kids for 5th grade, and a lot of other opportunities to volunteer during the classrooms. And now that I'm not going to be doing that, I'm going to have time to dedicate it more to the community at large. I'm also running because reading is my favorite pastime. I essentially grew up in a library. My mother, when she returned to work while I was a child, was the evening librarian in the children's department in our local town library in Connecticut, and I went to work with her every day. There was nothing better than finding a corner to sit and read in for hours on end. And finally, I'm running because I see myself as an advocate, and I believe a strong advocate is something that the town needs in all of the various positions. Library trustee is no different. I'm a lawyer by trade. I practice family law, and I advocate for people on a daily basis. I do a lot of volunteer work within my training in the office as well. I mostly represent left-behind parents in international kidnapping matters, something that happens far more regularly than people realize. But that's where I spend most of my volunteer work in the office. And so I look forward to meeting everybody, and I hope to earn your vote. And I would ask for one of your 2 votes for library trustee on April 27th. Thank you.
Thank you, Wendy. Melissa, you have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Melissa Morabito, and I'm running for library trustee as well. I'd like to start by thanking the League of Women Voters for organizing this today and giving me the opportunity to speak to you, and to you for coming out today on this busy and beautiful Sunday, especially after yesterday. Since I'm new to town politics and not new to Westwood, I thought I'd start off by telling you a little bit about myself. My family has lived on Canton Street since 2010. My husband, my 2 children, and our rescue dog, Juniper. My oldest is now an 8th grader at Thurston, and my youngest is a 5th grader at the Downey. We have relied heavily on the Westwood Public Library. When we first moved here, we did Lego building and crafting, we did story time, and it was really a place to meet new people. We didn't know anybody here, and it was an opportunity to make connections with other people in the community. As they got older, we participated in book groups and did the summer reading, which was always a big favorite in my household. And during the pandemic, we did the trivia nights, and we loved the mystery bags from the librarians with the special books that we never knew what we were going to get. I use Libby on my commute up to work, and it makes that so much more enjoyable. The Westwood Public Library reminds me of the library that I grew up in, the open stacks and being able to look for books, and it thrills me to see my children get to do the very same thing. And no doubt that these experiences and my love of books have affected my career choices. I'm an educator. I work at UMass Lowell. I'm a professor in the School of Criminology and Justice Studies. I teach undergraduate students, and I use the UMass Lowell Library to further my own research as well. It's no exaggeration to say that I literally use libraries every single day. Our Westwood Library is so important to community members of every age, and I am running for a Westwood Library trustee because I want to keep our library accessible and welcoming to everyone in the community. I would also like to be a voice for families with school-aged children because I believe that representation matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Maureen.
Saved by the bell.
Hi, I'm Maureen Von Yu. I am running for re-election for the Board of Library Trustees. I have resided in Westwood for 30 years, and with my husband, Jim, we live on Locust Drive. And we've raised 3 children here who went through the public school system and went on to seek further education, or all are gainfully employed. Professionally, I was a public educator, serving as a special education teacher and literacy specialist for 37 years, and came to Westwood and participated in many other programs, committees, volunteer experiences while in the process of raising children as well. and came to the board in 2017. During that time, I've served in a variety of ways on the board, as liaison to the Friends of the Library, secretary on occasion. I served most recently on the hiring committee for the new director in the spring of 2021, which was a process that went over many months, and we did our due diligence and hired Lizzie McGovern as our current director, very happily. I also have served on the steering committee for the development of the new 3-year strategic plan, and had the privilege of working with both Director McGovern, another trustee, and Administrator Coleman from the town, along with a consultant that was hired. Also observing 100% of the library staff participating in that process, developing new initiatives that we will be working on going forward. In fact, that have already had work begun in 2023. We also looked at our collection development policy and reapproved that in 3/22, and would like to move forward to represent the patrons of the library, the community, support the director and her staff in continuing to provide a 21st century library for Westwood. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. We'll now go to the first question, and we will start with Melissa on the first question. In what ways do librarians serve the community? And if at any time I need to repeat a question, don't hesitate.
Oh my goodness. I mean, librarians were really the first Google, right? I mean, they can answer every question. I know, so here in Westwood, Lizzie has recommended some of my daughter's favorite books. We had a stage where she was reading ahead of grade level, and some of the content was too mature, and she helped us find that sweet spot of books. I mean, she made my village a little bit bigger, and I am eternally grateful for that. At UMass Lowell, I just had an experience where I had a couple students who were plagiarizing on their midterm, and they were copying and pasting from the textbook. And I think that this group of students probably missed a whole bunch, and so we're having the librarians do a seminar on what plagiarism is to explain it. I'm going to use it as a teachable moment. So I would say, what do libraries not do? Librarians not do. I mean, they're fantastic.
Thank you. Maureen?
Well, they do so many different things, and we're so fortunate here to have such a diverse group with so many different areas of expertise, who are our department heads and the boots on the ground in each department. For me, it's always been a terrific place to come and find the books that you want and need, and things for your family and children. But also they provide a resource for patrons who are coming in who may not know exactly where to find what they want, but also really what they want, by answering questions that help to lead them in a direction that they might not have thought of before.
Thank you. Wendy?
I wholeheartedly agree with what's been said before me. I think librarians are incredibly important members of our community, especially for our young people, helping to generate the love of reading in young kids, and somebody for them to turn to for suggestions of what they might like and how to find it. And even if they're not so excited about reading, the other opportunities that they have to, with the puzzles and the little games that they have, and the ability to just sit back and color in the children's department. And all of my kids went through phases of really enjoying books and then not so enjoying books, and would still come and do some of the other activities. So I think the librarians overseeing those components are incredibly important to our kids.
Thank you. We'll now go to question 2, and with that, we'll start with Maureen. What are your reactions to efforts nationwide to ban books in places such as schools and libraries?
Okay, well, that's a really important conversation, and is happening nationwide. And I think, one of the things that we did in reviewing our own protocol for collection development and responses to the community when an item or some material might be questioned. We were very careful in our process of doing that, looking over our policy, which adheres to the American Library Association's Bill of Rights in regards to that, and it's so important that we continue to do that. The rule that we've gone by is that and our own policy and an opportunity for reconsideration if a patron has concerns, which goes through the process of the department head, then the director, and then comes to the board to decide whether something should be retained, relocated, or moved from the library, and then notify the patron of a decision.
Thank you. Wendy?
Thank you. As a lawyer, I think that freedom of speech and freedom of expression are incredibly important to our country as a whole. I think the concept of banning books that should be available to people is a tragedy, frankly. If there's something that's inappropriate for certain readers, I think that's where parents and librarians can assist with stepping in and guiding young readers to alternative opportunities to read something different. But I think that as a general society, we can't be going around banning books and restraining freedom of speech and expression.
Thank you. Melissa?
So I agree with both answers before me. Censorship is terrible, and it harms our kids and it harms our community. I would be against any efforts towards censorship as an educator and also as a parent. I think that there's opportunity for context, right? I mean, I would much rather my kids read things in my house where we can then talk about it, and I would hate to take that opportunity away from them.
Thank you. We'll now go to the third question, and with this one, we will be starting with Wendy. What do you see as strengths in the programming and resources available currently in the library?
So I think that we have a large, diverse set of programming right now. One of my favorites, which I wish was available when my kids were a bit younger, is the Reading to Dogs. I think it's incredible to have your kid have an opportunity, especially for kids that are afraid of animals, which there's a lot of kids around who are, giving kids the opportunity to sort of strengthen their confidence in interacting with animals while at the same time growing their ability to read. I think it's just an amazing program. But again, with the diversity, I know that we have horticultural programs of, I know that there are, Lego opportunities for kids. There's, as I mentioned before, the games and the puzzles and things of that nature. So there's just such a diversity in the various programming that's offered. Bringing in, readers and, authors and, all of those things just provide a wide variety of opportunities for people with different interests. And I think it's incredibly important to try and engage people with different interests.
Thank you. Melissa?
So I guess my favorite thing about library programming is that it's so accessible, that it gets people in the door. I love the Youth Advisory Board, the summer reading, and that has been expanded to winter reading, just to encourage kids to read when they're not in school. The vacation week programming, the kids are here, and then so it's easy to walk on over to the children's room and take out a few books while they're there. The trivia nights, and then the book clubs, and that sort of thing. I think we do have a wide diversity of programming here, and the goal is to be as inclusive as possible, to really that there should be something for everybody in our community.
Thank you. Maureen?
Yes, so I'm very proud of our library that it has such an ongoing effort to review the collection and continue to enrich it and provide such a diverse material to the community. Our technology efforts are really play into at all ages, things that people need, from the youngsters to our senior citizens, and their needs at their level, including helping some of us who are perhaps not even as astute with some of the technology that's offered as well. Some of the programming as well is across the board of our patronage. We now have a library of things for people to come and use, take out. I'm sure some people have done that already, and that's one of the ongoing efforts that we have in terms of the new, initiatives that are taking place. So I think we're in a good place with a lot of that. And I would also include that some of these things are happening at the branch library. I hope people have visited that. And we have a new business center there. So again, an effort to meet the needs of the population.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Melissa. The question is, what do you see as a potential area for improvement or growth?
Sure. I think one of the reasons that I was interested in this position is that short Wednesday, right? That we know so many of our middle school and high school students are coming to the library, and it creates a challenge for library staff. But I think that it's an opportunity. And as I think about it, I mean, it sort of tickles me that our young people want to go to the library, right? When I was that age, that was not where we were going in our spare time. And so I think that that's an opportunity that we have not fully addressed yet, and I look forward to that challenge.
Thank you. Maureen?
So in the process of doing the strategic plan going forward, the next 3-year plan, there was a survey done, and part of the survey was about whose needs are we meeting, who are we missing, and one of the things that came up was adult males. So that the survey answers, well, are there programs for us? So that's an area going forward that the director and the staff are building programs. And another area was some of populations who are moving into our community, that we might offer programs that will bring them in as well. So I think that's an area that we are aware of, becoming aware of, and addressing. In addition to that, we are, again, moving forward with more opportunities for technology use and all of the reading programs, because people don't just come to the library for books. Now they're using, electronic reading and so forth, and we have to build that circulation as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Wendy?
So in terms of improvement and growth, one of the things that I recently discovered from one of my children is that there are some older kids here in the afternoons who are available to help the younger kids with homework. And I think that may be something that's not so widely known. It's certainly not something I knew of until about a week and a half ago. And so I think, expanding on something like that, where you have high school students that are, connected and buddied up with middle school students to help with homework and tutoring, and that may, sort of dovetail into solving some of the short Wednesday issues that with an overwhelming amount of children who head here. I think that's an area that might, be grown further.
Thank you. I'm looking around for some of the league volunteers. Have any questions come in for the library candidates? Seeing none, this will be your last question before we move to closing statements. And with this one, we will be starting with Maureen.
Okay.
Do you see any challenges at present? And if so, what might you propose as a solution?
Well, a couple of them have already come up. The idea of questioning materials that come into the library that could result in banning. And that is, a priority, because banning is only done to limit people's freedoms, and that's not something we want to see here in Westwood. At least I personally don't. And the other thing that has sort of come up, and I can hear that theme, is in terms of behavior in the library. And the library is a public space. And while we have to find solutions, and I think the director and the staff are working very hard to do that in terms of professional development and so forth, we're engaging in finding resources to do that, the mentoring program being one of them. So that's good. And so I would ask for your vote so that I can continue to work with our fine staff and director on some of the initiatives that they have come up with to move forward. And I also thank the League of Women Voters for having us today.
Wendy?
So I think that the behavior thing is something that had been an ongoing problem, and I understand it's getting better, but I think there's probably still the ability to, you know, figure out a way to have probably the middle schoolers in particular, my kids are probably part of the offenders at one point or another. You know, I think it gets particularly loud in here after school. I think there's, you know, with the, I understand there was a lot of eating in not necessarily the right places, which I think has improved. But I think those are sort of the problems that I have, you know, as a parent and somebody who's come in through the library have, you know, noticed on occasion. And I do think they are improving, but, you know, as some of the things that were already addressed, you know, potentially, and I didn't realize it was a formal mentor program, but, you know, I think that having some of the older students, you know, helping some of the younger students is a nice way. And I also think that, you know, there's maybe some opportunity for, you know, some senior citizens and younger students to, you know, get to know each other, and, you know, that might be something that, you know, would be another way to, even if it's just a reading thing as opposed to, you know, the math that's changed over time that I can't figure out myself these days. So that might even be another opportunity for mentoring beyond just looking at high school students. So with that in mind, I thank you all again for your time. The library is, you know, a very important place for everybody in the community, and a strong library is something that we all need to keep our community one where we all want to live and raise our children.
Thank you. Melissa?
So I think that the challenge is to keep our library as inclusive and accessible as possible. Our community is constantly changing, and I think we have to change to meet those needs. I know as part of the strategic plan, it came up that people who speak Chinese, right, we're looking for more materials. And I think that part of that is doing a sort of assessment of what's going on in the community and what do we need. I also think, you know, our kids are kind of coming back from COVID, so there's behaviors and there's things like I'm seeing in my classroom at UMass Lowell with not knowing what's plagiarism and what's not. And I think that those are learning opportunities. So I do think we could see them as challenges, but I don't know that they're bad challenges. I think that it's going to bring us forward as a community. So thank you for having me here today, and thank you for all of you for coming out. Our library is our community center, right? And quite literally, we have events like this. We have, this is where our kids go after school, and I think we need to acknowledge it and celebrate it as such.
Thank you. We'll now move to your closing statements, and we'll start with Maureen, and then we'll do Melissa, and then Wendy. Maureen?
In closing, again, thank you for the opportunity. Thank you for coming out today. My experience doing this over the last few years has been enriching. It's been a learning experience for me. It's been really eye-opening, you know, way beyond what the library was to me before that, which was important, but to understand the way it functions, the hard work that the people do. And I see the trustees as, yes, having to represent the community and their needs, but also supporting the director and the staff. And it is one that we should all be so proud of. They are extremely hardworking and open to suggestion and professional development. So we should be very proud of that. I would appreciate your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Melissa?
So thank you again for inviting me here today. I'm running for a library trustee because I really want to support the amazing work of our library. The current board has been doing a great job. I also think it's important to have representation, to have the voice of families with school-aged children on the board, because representation really does matter. I'm committed to ensuring that our library remains an inclusive and accessible place to all Westwood community members. Our library is our community center, and it should be a refuge for kids, adults, people of all ages. And it should continue to be part of our village, right? We rely on the staff here to do that for us. I'm excited about the opportunity to serve on the board and to serve the community and put my philosophy into practice. So I'm asking for your vote. Early voting, April 14th and 15th, and the election is the 25th. So thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. And Wendy?
Thank you again for having me here today. It's been a privilege to sit here on the panel with my fellow running mates. And I've never done anything like this before. So, you know, it's been kind of an eye-opening experience to look around the room and see how many people come out for something like this. It's been impressive. I am, again, running for library trustee because I believe in service to the community. You know, reading is my absolute favorite pastime, and as an advocate for the library, I think I would do a good job of continuing the goal of keeping it open, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, maintaining a robust library of programming, and working with everybody else on the board to continue the amazing work that's being done here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. I want to remind everyone that there are 2 seats open on your board of library board. 2 of these candidates will be elected. As someone pointed out earlier, you can, the last day to register to vote is April 18th, or April 14th, 15th. It was hard to read this. And the last day to apply for absentee by mail ballot is April 18th, and April 25th is the vote. So thank you all for running for office, and best wishes, and I think we should give them a round of applause. Okay, let me look at them while you're standing. Oh, here. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just raise my voice.
Well, I think we want it for West Virginia.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Oh, great, thank you. Okay.
Is it on? Ah, there it is. Thank you, thank you. We're back. Thank you all. We are now going to hear from the candidates for school committee. There are, I'm looking at my instructions here, there are 2 3-year terms and there are 3 candidates, and we will do the same process as we did with the library trustees. We will be going in alphabetical order with Joanna French, Amanda Phillips, and Thomas Themistocles. Ooh, thank you, thank you. We will start with Joanna. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank the League of Women Voters for this forum, and to Judy, who couldn't be here, and also for Sheila for helping to organize. I'd also like to thank all of you for showing up to learn more about each of us. And thanks to Tom and to Amanda for showing up and joining in this lively discussion today. I'm Joanna French, and it is with gratitude and a sense of purpose that I seek this position. My husband Patrick and I moved to Westwood in 2018 for the excellent schools that our 2 boys now attend. Tim is at Thurston, and Danny is at Downey. Growing up, my parents instilled in me the importance of education and a strong work ethic. And from my mother, I gained my moral compass and my sense of justice. From my father, I learned the benefits of using logic and reasoning to make important decisions. I earned my master's degree in global communications from Emerson College, and I've spent 20 years in communications at Harvard and MIT. A quality education and a strong foundation helped me reach my full potential. I have benefited from the support and mentorship of people who have believed in me and supported me and who saw me for who I am. At MIT, I see the end result of a strong academic foundation. Students who love to learn, who challenge convention and tempt failure. Students who seek out diverse perspectives and collaborate with respect and curiosity. How do we ensure that Westwood continues to develop students like these? It doesn't happen by accident. It takes a commitment to sustain and move forward. It takes district leadership committed to these values. I'm in this race because I care deeply about this community and I'm passionate about public education. I attend school committee meetings regularly, and I have voted in nearly all municipal elections. As my commitment to the Thurston's PTO ends and my oldest moves up to high school, I want my skills and my experience to have a bigger impact on our community, and I want to continue to see Westwood move forward. If elected, I promise to show up, to listen, and to take action. The town of Westwood does and should expect a lot from its candidates, and I intend to exceed your expectations. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Amanda, 2 minutes.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Amanda Phillips. I'm running for re-election to the school committee. I grew up down the road in Needham. My spouse and I settled in Westwood in 2008. We have 2 boys at the Hanlon School, and our daughter is at Westwood Nursery School. I feel so fortunate to live in a community that prioritizes high-quality public schools. Thank you for that. I have seen firsthand time and again just how amazing our district leadership, educators, and staff truly are. I believe that we are responsible for preparing young people for the opportunity to achieve great success in whatever path they choose, and that in doing so, they're kind, confident, critical thinkers who celebrate and embrace different cultures, backgrounds, and worldviews. Although it's been a challenging few years, I'm incredibly proud of our community and all that we've accomplished since I joined the school committee in 2020. Here are a few highlights of what we've accomplished during my tenure. We passed critical debt exclusion to fund the new elementary school. We provided guidance to navigate the district through the challenging COVID-19 pandemic. Westwood was one of the first districts to get its students back in school and experienced less learning loss than other districts. We were also able to maintain academic excellence in the challenging post-COVID landscape. We prioritized student mental health by approving additional psychologist and adjustment counselor roles. We also pushed the start times at Westwood High School back later with an eye towards improving physical and mental health. We also expanded the MECO program to include grades K through 5, and doing this using grant funding only. We increased communication, access, and transparency to the committee. We hired a new superintendent and added a few other key leadership roles, and we approved the first ever district-wide equity audit. A second term will give me a chance to continue all of this important work. I hope that you'll give me this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda. Thomas?
Thank you, and thanks to the League of Women Voters for holding this, and thanks to my 2 running mates here. My name's Tom Themistocles. My wife Tara and I have been in town since for about 9 years. We live over on Clapboard Tree Street. I have 4 children, ages 15, 13, 11, and 4. So my 4-year-old's going to be a kindergartner next year, and I have a very vested interest in the school system here. I'm running for school committee. I'm not out to impress anyone. I'm running to volunteer my time because I want to focus on academic excellence for all students in the town. I would like to focus on math, science, technology, writing, reading, and engineering at all levels. Since I graduated college, I've exclusively worked in finance. I feel like I could offer a good perspective on fiscal and financial matters, dealing with money, making good decisions, where we're at in this economic cycle. With rising interest rates and record inflation, I feel like I could offer some good perspective on decisions being made with the school committee and the budget. I want to focus on mental, social, emotional health of all our students. We've seen what's gone on across the country with the fallout of the pandemic. Mental health has been, to me, a worse problem than the actual virus for our young people. And also I'd like to focus on teacher retention here in town. My mother was a public school employee for 31 years. She served as a shop steward for the town of Hanover for 20 years. So I know firsthand the importance of retaining our good teachers in town. Historically, Westwood has had great teachers. So I think paying them properly and keeping them here is a key to success for all of our students at all the schools. And lastly, I look forward to working with the new superintendent that's just been hired. I think there's a great opportunity to move forward and start working on healing the community and working together as a whole. And thank you.
Thank you. We'll now go to the questions, and the first question will go to Amanda. What do you see as strengths in the Westwood Public Schools?
There are a lot of strengths. I would say the community support and the shared value that I think everybody in the community shares in seeing the Westwood Public Schools move forward. I think the tradition of academic excellence is another strength, and I think the support of families. I feel really lucky to live in a community that really rallies around the schools.
Thank you. Thomas?
Hi, yes, I would agree with Amanda on that. This academic excellence in town has been phenomenal historically. I think we have a community of people that have instilled diversity, equity, and inclusion at home, and I think that shows up at all the schools. We have a strong support from parents across the town, and I would say that the sense of community has been very helpful.
Thank you. Joanna?
Thank you. Hands down, our teachers are our greatest assets. They're among the best in the state, and they're so very dedicated. I have yet to experience an opportunity where I've reached out to teachers and they haven't responded within a day, addressing my concerns with thoughtful, careful responses. So our teachers are by far our greatest asset. But I also see our schools are supported by a community that really cares deeply about its children. Our reputation as an inclusive, education-first community allowed us to attract some of the best top candidates for the pool for superintendent. And ultimately, we landed a great leader to take over for Emily Parks. There's momentum here in Westwood, and I'm excited to be a part of that movement as we move forward this coming year.
Thank you. Next question will be starting with Thomas. What do you see as areas for improvement?
Areas of improvement. So the district just conducted an audit, an equity audit, and there were a couple good things that came out of it. One was to create an equity communication program and hiring a director of human resources. I'm looking forward to seeing the remainder of the audit and look forward to working with the new superintendent on how to implement areas of improvement.
Thank you. Joanna?
So really, I think it comes down to support for mental health for our middle grades. We know these middle years can be so challenging and difficult, and they have been made even more difficult following the pandemic. Our children, and especially our teens, are in a moment of mental health crisis. A recent CDC report talked about how school-based activities and clubs can have a profound impact and can change the lives of teens with relatively small investment. Our schools can provide education to teach our children how to manage their emotions, how to understand consent, and how to ask for what they need and advocate for themselves. So I appreciate the investment that the district has made in this area, and I want us to double down on those efforts. The second thing that I think we can really focus on is teacher retention and morale. I think our teachers have really had a tough go of it coming out of the pandemic, and then following a contentious teachers' contract negotiation. The superintendent has a real opportunity to build that community back up and support our teachers, build their community, help them understand why we're here, and make them feel a part of our community in the years to come.
Thank you. Amanda?
I agree with Joanna about mental health. I think that, we've made some real strides there, but there's a lot more work to do. While I've been on school committee, I've consistently advocated for adding social workers to as many schools as possible. I think they would fill a real gap. I think our school psychologists are phenomenal, but their workload is high, and they're responsible for testing and students' IEP needs. So having social workers who can bridge the gap, I think, would be really valuable. And then I would like to see us focus on math. I think that, particularly at the high school, there's some work to be done there, and the district is looking into new curriculum. So hopefully we'll be able to roll that out in the fall. My understanding is it's a little bit tricky to find the appropriate curriculum for Westwood because some of our students are at such an accelerated level, it can be hard to find a curriculum that meets their needs. So hopefully, we're on the right path with improving the math curriculum.
Thank you. We'll now go to the next question. We'll start with Joanna. What do you see as the school committee's roles and responsibilities?
Very simply, the role and the responsibility of a school committee is to set the policies for the district, to review those policies on a regular basis, to review and approve the budget, and to make sure our schools are appropriately allocated, and finally to hire our senior districts, set personnel decisions, hiring and firing our senior leadership across the district.
Thank you. Amanda?
Joanna covered it, the kind of 3 buckets in terms of what we do. But I also think it's, just to be visible in the community and be accessible and be able to listen and try to find out kind of what's happening out there. Are there trends that maybe district leadership doesn't know about? Or do we hear something, on the soccer field or in the grocery store, something like that? So I feel like to be an advocate and representative as well.
Thank you. Thomas?
Yes, Joanna covered all 3 aspects that I would agree on. Especially working with the superintendent on the budget, I think is very important in having a financial plan instead of, plugging holes. And having a child in pretty much every school level, I feel like I will can have a decent pulse on each level of what's going on at each different school.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Amanda. Please comment on the district's recent work to address diversity, inclusion, and equity in meeting the needs of students. Do you have a different lens, viewpoint, or perspective on these present initiatives?
I'm really proud of the initiatives. It's something that I've, kind of tried to champion through my time on the committee. I think we have a lot more work to do, but I think we've made some progress over the last few years. The recommendations that came out of the equity audit are so important. As Tom mentioned, hiring an HR director who has some sort of background in equity work, I think will help us hire a more diverse workforce, which we've been trying to do, but haven't been hugely successful. So hopefully having, a senior leader in that role. And then the other thing that I took away from those recommendations that I intend to try to do if I'm reelected, and I hope other committee members will too, is to approach decisions with an equity lens, to think about every decision we make and who it's going to benefit and who it might harm.
Thank you. Thomas?
Yeah, so the Westwood Public School says that we believe that every student who attends school in Westwood deserves to reach their full potential, and I couldn't agree with that more. I'm happy to see what came out of the equity audit. My son Rocco, he's at the middle school now. He's a volunteer for the unified basketball team. It's a great program where all walks of life are involved in, team together, where there's boys, girls, doesn't matter, gender doesn't matter. There's disabled kids, everybody's involved. The only thing that I would say is I wish it could be bigger and get more kids involved. As far as going forward, I look forward to working with the new superintendent and best implementing DEI for all students. across the town.
Thank you. Joanna?
Thank you. So last year, as people have mentioned, we embarked on this equity audit. And the purpose was to give us insight into the strengths and weaknesses and to clarify for us where we want to move forward as a community in order to meet the needs of all of our community and all of our children. And from that important work came 5 clear and important recommendations. One was to create an equity communications plan. In short, second was to ensure that we're working all from the same framework in our decision making. 3 was to hire a human resources director with a lens on retaining and hiring our top talent. 5 was to create a learning plan to ensure our equity and our professional development was with a lens towards equity and culturally responsive practices. Sorry, I skipped one. The other one was to measure our progress and track our data. So I say these because these 5 are it's an important framework for us as we approach our work on school committee to think about diversity, equity, and inclusion. The role of the school committee in carrying out this work is to re-examine our policies with a lens towards diversity, equity, and inclusion, and to also allocate our budget to make sure our professional development dollars are going towards these types of culturally responsive and equitable training opportunities for our teachers. One thing I'm really excited about with the DEI equity audit and its recommendations is focusing on the communications plan. That's my areas of expertise, and that's where I can bring strength to the committee in making sure that we're all working with the shared language around diversity, equity, and inclusion across Westwood.
Thank you. Okay, the next question will be starting with Thomas. We have seen recent efforts across the country to ban books, limit curriculum topics, and restrict rights of transgendered youth. Please comment specifically on your thoughts about each of these developments as it relates to educational impacts and policies for the district.
So I believe that DEI should be pro DEI for all the schools. I mean, there shouldn't be banning books. I think is kind of one of the women prior said it would be a tragedy. I wouldn't be agreeable to banning books on any level. And that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you. Joanna?
Could you please repeat the question?
Sure. We've seen recent efforts across the country to ban books, limit curriculum topics, and restrict rights of transgendered youth. Please comment specifically on your thoughts about each of these developments as it relates to educational impacts and policies for the district.
So I think where we start with this conversation is how curriculum is developed in Westwood. And so again, a reminder, school committee's role is to approve the budget, set the district policies, and make personnel decisions at the district level. Curriculum development starts with the standards set by the state at the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education. The superintendent then sets the goals, and the teachers use their talent and their creativity to identify the learning methods that will work best with their students. But ultimately, and sure, the school committee participates in curriculum review, but ultimately we trust our expert educators to teach the curriculum and empower our superintendent to review those lessons to make sure they align with DESE standards. Our job on the committee is to approve funds for classroom materials and to make sure our policies provide an education equity for all of our students. When I think about banning books, though, I have a different analogy. I live in a beautiful home. It's beautiful, but it's old. It's 120 years old, and it needs to be updated from time to time. The changes we need to make in our education system are like remodeling a valuable but outdated home. Keeping what works, updating what doesn't, and to make it more functional for today's needs. Some of our district's curriculum review process, and in reviewing our district review, our curriculum, our educators should continue to look for books and materials that will help students see themselves, understand multiple perspectives, and create opportunities for conversations around social issues and current events. It's not the job of the school committee to decide which books are used and which are not. We trust our expert educators to select the best books for their classrooms. Our job on school committee is to approve the funds for the classroom materials.
Thank you.
I have a question. Did you release these questions prior? Because how would you have a written response to the question exactly?
No. Thank you for asking. Thank you for asking. When you run for office, you get a feel for what people are going to ask you, and this is not uncommon. I've been in many towns, and candidates frequently have questions to what they think might be asked. But thank you for, no, I think that clears that up for everyone. Thank you. And now we go to Amanda. Do you want me to repeat the question?
It's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. So, you know, the town, last year, the town of Westwood, the select board, the Human Rights Task Force, put out a statement, their commitment to, I'll just read it. It says, "The town of Westwood strives to be, for all residents and community members, a safe place where one is free from discrimination and able to grow into the best, most authentic version of oneself, and where we are committed to continuously learning and evolving through our connection to and mutual respect for each other in our community." So that, you know, I interpret that as the shared value of our town. So it certainly doesn't jive with banning books or you know, banning transgender students or anything like that. We should be amplifying the voices of our marginalized students. Everybody stands to benefit from learning about how people are different. We are, you know, setting up our students to go out into the world, and they're going to meet all sorts of different people. So we really owe it to them to provide them with these different experiences. And then the other, you know, even if you kind of don't buy into that, the other thing that I think is important to note is there's a whole body of research out there that shows that in order for children to succeed academically, they need to feel a sense of safety, acceptance, and belonging. So really, it stands to benefit the entire community to make sure that every student feels like they belong in Westwood Public Schools.
Thank you. The next question now, we will be starting with Joanna. The CDC 2023 report in February tells us teen girls are experiencing record high levels of violence, sadness, and suicide. LGBTQ plus teens continue to face extremely high levels of violence and mental health challenges. How do you propose addressing both?
It's a great question, and actually I referenced the CDC report in an earlier answer. I'm familiar with that report, and it's why I really want to focus our mental health efforts at the middle school level and at the high school level, because I feel like that's where our kids are really suffering. And especially with teenage girls, I loved the recommendation from that report, which talked about helping children advocate for themselves, helping children ask for what they need, and also deeply understanding consent. And these are lessons we can have in our classrooms. One of the things that motivates me to join school committee now is that we can recognize the pandemic was really difficult for our children. And while the policies that were put in place were really important for community safety, they did have a devastating effect. And we're seeing the output of that in reports such as the CDC's report. By doubling down on our efforts and our investment on social and emotional well-being and addressing these mental health concerns, we will continue to help our children come out of this pandemic with a renewed sense of optimism for their own futures.
Thank you. Amanda?
So I already mentioned, that I think it would be really important to try to get social workers into the schools so they could provide some like targeted interventions with young women. I also think about our community and kind of what's working. I know that I think might be like third grade girls have the Girls on the Run program, and that just seems so great in terms of like, obviously, exercise is good for mental health. I think that's well known, but just the sense of belonging and achievement. So I'm wondering if there isn't something that could be done for older young women as well. We're such a sports-centric community. Maybe there's an opportunity with some no-cut sports, or to bring girls together and give them the same feelings of belonging and acceptance and just the benefits of exercise.
Thank you. Thomas?
Yeah. So one of my main reasons I'm running is because of the social, emotional, and mental health of our students being in such bad shape. So I had an idea that I would, if elected, I would try to have implemented at the high school and potentially the middle school. It's a project called the Science of Well-Being. It was developed by Laurie Santos, who's a professor at Yale. It's been the most popular course in the history of the university over 300 years. And it takes a deep dive into the misconceptions about what's making all students happy. It's not their social media, it's not their cell phones. The program focuses on things that actually make a human being happy. They think their cell phone or their goal of getting into a college is what's going to make them happy, but it's building relationships, interacting with human beings, being fully submersed and immersed in extracurricular activities, and savoring experiences with their co-students.
Thank you. I believe, has everyone answered that one now?
Yes.
Okay, it's getting a little confusing. We're going to start with Amanda. And this follows on to this question, some comments that were just made. There's been an amazing growth of women holding office, but there are still obstacles given women are often labeled emotional or passive. How can schools foster girls' and women's voices?
Gosh, I think that there's been, a lot of work in building the civics curriculum, so young women have those opportunities. And then I think just, providing role models. So that's why I think it's so important to see, for example, I was speaking yesterday with a retired teacher. She was older. And she said, I've never seen someone who looks like you on school committee. She said it was always, when I was a teacher, it was always older white men. So I think, just the representation and seeing women in district leadership and on the committee is so important. That's one of the reasons I'm doing this.
Thank you. Thomas?
Yes, so my team, my campaign team is pretty much all women. So I see the value of having women at a higher role. And I agree with Amanda that having role models in specific spots within the entire school system would be an important for all girls to see.
Thank you. Joanna?
Yeah, I'm excited to hear that the district is reconsidering its reproductive health and sexuality program starting in grade 5 and all the way in through high school. I remember when Tim went through this program, it was like a very embarrassing thing about, puberty and whatnot. But then I was also alarmed to find out that we don't talk again about sexuality until high school. And it feels like in 2023, we are too late for that conversation by the time they get to high school. So we need to be talking about consent. We need to be talking about how to advocate for yourself, how to ask for what you need, how to make sure you have trusted adults in the room that you can go to. So I think the role of what we can do as a community to help bolster and put up role models for students or for women in our community, it takes knowing, seeing, having trusted adults be visible in their lives, connect with them at a very deep and emotional level, and know that they can turn to somebody when they have questions, when they have concerns, when they need help.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Thomas. The school committee oversees the district budget. What specific programs, or I believe this word is investments, in reserves do you see as a priority?
The reserves, did you say? Sorry, can you just repeat that?
Yeah, it's the handwriting's a little difficult to decipher. The school committee oversees the district budget. What specific programs, or it looks like the word is investments, in reserve do you see as a priority? And I'm not sure, maybe someone.
I think it's resources.
It's resources.
Oh, okay, investments in resources. All right, thank you. All right, the school committee oversees the district budget. I think we've got that clear. What specific programs or investments in resources do you see as a priority?
So the budget is a complicated thing. I think my background in finance, running profit and loss and making financial plans on all sorts of financial matters would be helpful to all programs. Using resources wisely, cutting back, spending more where we would see need be, collaborating with the school committee and with the heads of departments, superintendent, principals, I think would be important to me, and finding spots to use resources more wisely is what I'd be good at if I was on the school committee.
Thank you. Joanna?
Thank you. So I'll start by saying that I believe that a district's budget is a value statement about its community. And if approved at town meeting in May, the FY24 budget will allocate 66% to our education. The role of the school committee member requires a deep understanding of our budget. And I've heard Emily give her budget presentation numerous times. I've heard it at school committee meetings, I've heard it at school committee office hours, and I've heard it at roundtable discussions with my fellow PTO co-chairs. I advocate for what our town needs in meaningful and important ways, and I'm going to give you just a brief example. When I was listening to Emily give her recommendation, or give her budget presentation, she talked about the budget deficits we were facing in December and January, and we still did not have a settled contract with our teachers. She talked a little bit about the Chapter 70 program, and I perked up. I said, that's where we can go. That's where we can find funds to support our teachers and to close our budget gaps and to settle this teacher's contract. So I mobilized a community-wide effort to reach out to more than 1,200 members of our community, ask them to get on the phones, contact their local reps and their governor, and advocate for an increase in the Chapter 70 funding program. And it worked because we actually ended up more than doubling our Chapter 70 funding, and we were able to close our budget gaps, settle our contract negotiations, and settle our budget, approve our budget with a 5.8% increase over the previous year. This is huge for our district. So where I think we should make our investments, we should continue to invest in our teachers and our professional development, and making sure that all of our schools have what they need. And with creative problem solving that I can bring to the committee, I know that these types of efforts will be realized.
Thank you. Amanda?
So one of the things I've learned since joining the committee is that there isn't really a ton of flexibility with the budget. I think municipal budgets are a little different in that, 85% of the budget goes to salaries, and it should. Our teachers are our biggest asset. So that doesn't leave us with as much as one would think to work with. But in terms of what I would prioritize, I think I already mentioned the HR director. We had talked about that last year. We were hoping to be able to get that into the budget, but obviously with the way things landed, we had to kind of shelve that. So I'm hopeful that we're able to do that in the next year or so. And then we've got the equity audit. We'll have to put an action plan together. So whatever steps we come up with, we'll need to support that. So those would be the two things I think that I would prioritize, in addition to, of course, the salaries, the people.
Thank you. The next question, and this is a rather long one, so I will repeat it if you need it. It says, transparency is very important for town leadership. It can be hard to get a true sense of who you are, meaning the three of you, from curated materials and forums. As social media rises, many look to those platforms to help inform their choices. Are your personal social media accounts public? Joanna?
Yes. Well, I don't know about my Instagram because my Instagram is mostly pictures of my kids. But I do have my Facebook is public.
Okay.
I don't have a Twitter account. And I have campaign Facebook and Instagram account, which are both public. But if anyone wants to be friends with me on Instagram, I'm happy to let you. It's really just pictures of my kids.
Thank you. Amanda?
So that's an interesting one. I feel strongly about protecting my kids' privacy, so I have most of my social media accounts kind of locked down. I think my Twitter is public because I don't post any pictures there, but I just wouldn't be comfortable making my Facebook or my Instagram public. But I do have a campaign page on Facebook, so you can always connect with me there. And I just want to say, in terms of transparency as well, the school committee does have office hours, so if someone feels like they want to get a direct answer and have a conversation with a school committee member, they can always go there.
Thomas?
Yes, all my social media accounts are public. Instagram, I'm new to Facebook. It's for the campaign, and my Twitter account has been public since I've had it up until recently.
Thank you. Okay, the next question here, we'll be starting with Amanda. Do you feel equity or equality is most important in a public school system? How do you see special education students being impacted by your beliefs if you are elected to school committee?
I believe strongly that equity is important in the school system. I think as a public district, we are responsible for providing opportunities for everybody to reach their maximum potential. So that includes removing barriers and giving different tools to different students. So definitely equity. And in terms of special education, we have a phenomenal special education program here in town. People move here for our special education services. We have really low rates of out-of-district placement, and we have phenomenal specialized programs to try to make sure that special education students are included in their community schools.
Thank you. Thomas?
Yes, I have a number of different learners at my household. One being on a 504, another with severe dyslexia. So I've gone through the IEP process and all the daunting stuff that goes along with that for parents. And I'm in agreement with Amanda that we have a very strong department here with special ed. I have friends who live in Medway that send their autistic daughter to school here, and they've said to me they wouldn't know where they would be without the program here in Westwood, which is something to say. I'm in agreement with having equity. It's not just for special needs. I feel like there needs to be rigorous programs for those in AP courses, and special ed should get its fair share of equity. But also those kids who aren't really sports people or really good at academics, that kind of fall in that middle bracket, should also be have the same attention paid to them.
Thank you. Joanna?
I think our town and our district has already made clear that they prioritize equity over equality, and we see that because we have, curb cuts for children, for people with mobility disabilities. We have a ramp to access town hall so that everybody can enter into our town hall. It's not that, equality would say we have a town hall, make your way there. Equity says we'll put a ramp so that everyone can access it, and that's the difference between equity and equality. So we've already, as a town, made a statement about that, and we take that role very. We prioritize that in our town. At the school level, I think removing barriers to learning is one of our top priorities as a district. Our goal as a school committee is to serve our most vulnerable students. So it's making sure that we're addressing the needs of all of our students, but especially and including those whose learning processes and learning styles may be different, and especially when they're different than our own. As others have said, our special education program is second to none. We only send 0.5% of our student population out of district. That keeps our budget. It helps us manage our budget, but it also says that we place such a strong importance and value on serving our most vulnerable students that we have brought so many programs to each of our schools to support all learners across our district.
Thank you. The next question will be starting with Thomas. How would you handle it if the superintendent and/or the school committee made a decision that wasn't in line with your vote or preference?
Okay. Well, I think it majority rules, so I would be willing to accept defeat and be open-minded and try to work around differences that were had on whatever topic this may be disagreement upon.
Thank you. Joanna?
So I think this, I lead a team and I'm part of a team, and I think there's always going to be a difference of opinion, a different perspective, or people who think differently than me. And I think that's what makes a very robust team at work. I think it's what would make a very robust school committee, is that we all are independent thinkers and we bring a different perspective to the committee, and we help advocate for the things that we want to see and how we want to see our town move forward. If I'm outvoted, I think that's great. I think it's an opportunity for us to clarify what we'd like to see happen, have important discussions with one another, coming from a place of respect, listening, advocating, learning, and then, respecting the decision the team makes. When the team makes the decision, that is the team, and that is our decision. So I won't be, throwing a tantrum in the background that we didn't make the decision that I wanted to have made.
Thank you. Amanda?
So being on the committee, that certainly happens. I mean, we don't agree on everything all the time, but I think that we work really well as a group. and we're all respectful of one another. And, we all at least have the opportunity to contribute and share our opinions. So I can't think of a time where I've walked away, feeling really bad about the way something happened. So yeah, it's part of it.
Thank you. Okay, we're getting down to the end here. The next question, and I believe we start with Joanna on this one. It's, what do you believe the school committee can do to partner with the Westwood Police to keep our children safe in the event of an active shooter?
Oh gosh, it's like my worst nightmare. And I'll lead with the fact that if you look through my social media, you'll find that I'm very much a proponent of gun safety and protecting our community from the violence that guns can bring to a community. It's a tough one. We do a good job in our schools right now of having active shooter drills. I think that they are done with the appropriate amount of care to help our students understand the importance of such an event without scaring them. I think having police presence in our school to help normalize those professionals in the school as someone who's there to protect and help, and looking for the helpers is an opportunity, and I think we do that well already. I would hate to see things like metal detectors go up in our schools and in our entrances. I really like the security that's put in place at each of our schools, where you have to buzz in. There's a lot of care to make sure you are who you say you are, and you have to sign in, and you wear a lanyard, and all of those protective practices protect our schools without having something as scary as a metal detector in our schools. So I think the police, the way that we currently partner with our police force, I think we do that well in order to, our children see our police as helpers in our community, and there's a strong respect and mutual collaboration between those two organizations.
Thank you. Amanda?
So this is a topic I'm pretty passionate about. Before joining school committee, I was a volunteer for the Be Smart for Kids. It's a gun safety campaign. So I did that for several years. I was the state lead. I did a lot of trainings out in the community. And actually, this past November, we did a community event. We did partner with the police. So Chief Silva was there, somebody from Westwood Youth and Family Services was there, school committee members, and district leadership. And it was all about safe gun storage. It's not anti-gun at all. It's just about making sure that everybody understands the law is that you need to keep your gun locked and the ammunition locked separately. So it's trying to educate people, and also to educate parents to have maybe some challenging conversations around gun safety. Like if your child is going for a play date, when you're asking all the questions you go down, consider asking about that. But that all being said, the district does have a responsibility to make sure that teachers are trained, and I have mixed thoughts about active shooter drills and the effectiveness and the harm that could result. But I really feel strongly that it's not really a school's problem; it's a community problem. It's not up to the schools to fix this kind of pandemic we're in with all of these shootings. It really is up to the adults in the community. I don't think it's fair to put it on the schools.
Thank you. Thomas?
So for me, it's a very tough subject. So currently at the high school, it's a very autonomous day with the kids. They're coming and going all day long. We've had some trouble with teachers being absent quite a bit at the high school. So I have a student at the high school, and she's either leaving early in the morning or she's leaving early in the afternoon, and they're easily going in and out of school, which when you think about the worst case scenario, it's a little bit scary to think on what could happen. But they do have, I do like that they have to buzz in and out so you can keep track of who's coming and who's going. But I wouldn't mind seeing, especially at the high school, consistent police presence at the high school. Kids are, I think, old enough where it's not going to be too scary to see a police officer at the door. And educating the community on gun safety, I think, is also something that would be of great importance.
Thank you. This will be the last question. It's a little lighter than the one we just had. And then we will go to closing statements, and we will start the last question with Amanda. Do you have any ideas for improving the quality of food served? Including more fresh and healthy options.
Oh, gosh. You know, I don't, short of, having gardens at the schools and pulling the kids in and making it a teaching and learning experience for them to grow their own fresh produce. I think that would be phenomenal. But short of that, that is not something that I have a lot of expertise to share, that's for sure.
Thank you. Thomas?
Well, I'm lucky enough that the women in my life are unbelievable chefs, so I would maybe recommend either my mom or my wife getting hired at the schools to cook. But yeah, no, as far as improving food quality, I think that's kind of I think that would be a group effort and a group thought type thing where kids get to vote, parents have a vote, the administration has a vote, and try to figure out the best possible plan on.
Thank you. Joanna?
So I'm wondering if my son planted this question, maybe slash the healthy choices at the end, as they eat the school lunches. So I have two thoughts on this. I think the first thing is that I think our free lunch program that the state has provided is really important. I think it's important for kids to have food in their systems in order to be prepared to learn. A hungry kid is not a kid who's ready to learn. So, on the outset, I think we're lucky to live in Massachusetts that has funded this program. I was meeting with our state legislators last week, and both have said that this was a priority to continue in the upcoming budget. So I hope to see our free lunch program continue across the state. Our food services is outsourced. It's not something that, we don't hire the chefs in the kitchen to hire. So we have less control over exactly what the menu is. But that said, I think serving the kids and asking them what they'd like to see, more of, less of, what they don't like, what they, what their preferences are, and making sure that we have a variety of options, maybe a variety of cuisines, maybe making sure we're offering certain cuisines during certain months that recognize different cultures across our community. But then also, addressing, those who are vegan or those who are vegetarian or have various allergies. I know allergies are addressed, but, making sure that our menu addresses as many needs as possible.
Thank you. We'll now go to the closing statements, and we will do them in reverse order of the starting statements. So we'll start with Thomas, then we'll go to Amanda, and then Joanna.
So everyone, thank you for listening to me, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for doing this. I'd like to volunteer my time to give back to the educational system here. My mom was a teacher for a very long time, and she always said to me, when you have the time to give back, you should do it. I've been relieved of some coaching duties with my sons not being able to listen to me any longer on the field, so I've got some time. I'm willing to meet the needs of all students. People, you can get in touch with me whenever you want over email. I'll answer phone calls. And that's why I'm doing this. I'm doing this for the kids of the town. I'm not here to impress people. I'm not here to be a big shot. I just want to make a positive impact for all the students in this town.
Thank you. Amanda?
So much of my first term was trying to navigate through the pandemic. So I'm really eager to have the opportunity to dig in and move some critical initiatives forward. So some of the things I'd like the opportunity to work on would be onboarding the new superintendent of schools, closing academic gaps using evidence-based programs, supporting the unification of the Hanlon and Deerfield communities with a smooth transition of students and staff, and creating and implementing an action plan in response to the results of the district-wide equity audit. The next few years will be filled with change, the new district leadership, departure of 2 longtime administrators, a new elementary school, and whatever else the world throws our way. Steady, consistent leadership and deep knowledge of our institutions, policies, history, and challenges is going to make the difference in how we weather this change. I'm a proven public servant with a demonstrated ability to work collaboratively with parents, teachers, administrators, and town employees in order to move initiatives forward and support the best interests of the district and our students. Thank you so much for taking the time to learn about me and my campaign, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting this wonderful event.
Thank you. Joanna?
Thank you. So I'd like to also thank the League of Women Voters for hosting, and to you, Margaret, for moderating. I'm in this race because I believe that every child should have a strong foundation from which to thrive. And that requires a school system that educates the whole child ensures that every child feels a sense of belonging and is taught to their fullest potential. And we already have one of the strongest school systems in the nation, and it's important that we build for a future while sustaining our academic excellence today. In preparation for this campaign, I've spent months talking to you. What do you value in our community? What challenges are you facing? And it's abundantly clear to me that we have a shared vision. We want our students to excel both academically and socially. We want them to graduate prepared to succeed and compete in the world. We want financial transparency so we can keep up with the demand for our great schools and invest in responsible ways. We want our students to be good humans. We want them to think critically, to be curious, and to have the confidence to find their path. We need our educators, our school committee members, and our district leaders to be committed to these values and to lead with tenacity and with courage. In preparation for this, I also met with every candidate for superintendent, and I couldn't imagine wanting to be someone's boss without showing up to interview them. School committee is one of the most complicated political offices. It's personal, and it's about our most vulnerable and treasured assets, our children. You deserve a serious candidate who's ready to address these issues with compassion, competence, and a record of success. I'm listening, and I'm learning, and I'm advocating. I promise to put my curious and collaborative mindset to work for this town. I will lead with compassion, logic, and intention. Thank you for coming here today. I hope I've earned one of your 2 votes on April 25th.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Nice. I have one extra for this. Yeah, that's not bad though.
No, well, I there were a couple of them that
Nice,
I
nice,
put
nice.
together.
No, you did
'cause-
fine.
Thank you.
did
No, that,
perfect.
yeah.
No, I know, that was not an easy thing to So here's the select board, we do have that already.
They don't. None of them talk very long. Yeah. Okay. Can I have your attention, please? They know. They're not going to pay any attention. Yeah, I need a bullhorn. Yeah. Yeah. Can I have your attention, please? We're now going to hear from the candidates for Select Board. There are 2 candidates for one seat for a 3-year term, and they are before you right now. They are Michael Walsh and Joseph Privatera. Thank you. That's a
Multiple.
yes. And again, we will start with alphabetically. We will start with Joseph. and then Michael, and then we'll alternate back and forth.
Okay.
Okay? So, 2 minutes for your opening statements.
Thank you to the league for this opportunity. Thank you to Westwood Media. My name is Joe Privatera. I'm running for the Select Board in Westwood. I was raised in Westwood and have attended the Westwood Public Schools. In 1972, I was appointed to the Westwood Fire Department and served as a firefighter EMT for 11 years. I recently retired as the Director of Respiratory Care at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center. My wife, Christine, and I have served on numerous boards and committees, and we volunteer regularly. I served on the Westwood Conservation Committee for 18 years and was 17 years as the chairperson. I also served on OPEN, a committee to preserve open space. I served on the University of Steering Committee. I served on a number of committees. I have also sponsored several successful citizen petition articles at town meeting, and I regularly attend many of our town board meetings. As a member of the Select Board, I will work on reducing the rate of tax increases each year. My final budget at Beth Israel was $6.5 million, so I have experience managing budgets. I know how to really drill down to those line items, and I know how to economize. I also focus on prioritizing aid to the elderly who need it. Too many of our seniors are being taxed out of our town. Pedestrian safety, as I'm sure most of you know, is a top priority for me. I know firsthand how important having safe walking area is for our community. I'll do my best to resolve any outstanding issues with our police and fire department contracts and bring negotiations to an end with a fair and equitable contracts. I believe this is imperative not only for the employees, but it's important to their families and it's important to our community. Lastly, maintaining the rural character of our town and its natural resources has always been important to me. I have hiked, fished, and camped in just about every corner of this town. I want to ensure the next generation has the same opportunities that I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you. So first, for those of you that don't know, what does the Board of Selectmen do? For those of you that came here from the city because you hear about the city mayor and things like that, I try to tell people it's kind of like having 3 mayors, right? We all get to decide and the majority rules. So in 2007, my wife and I moved here from West Roxbury because we had 3 small children. And they went to the Downey School, they went to the middle school, and they graduated from the high school. My daughter went on to Bentley. My son is graduating from Providence, summa cum laude this May. And my daughter is sophomore down at Elon University. So they all went through Westwood Public Schools. When I first got involved in politics, I guess you'd say I became the PTO president. I guess that would be my first start in politics. And worked my way up to the president of the PTO. And then I became the president of WESC. For those of you that are new to town, WESC used to be the way that we raised money for the elementary schools. We would have one big function every year, and then we'd split up the money between the 5 elementary schools. Now, they are all their own 501c3s, and that organization has been defunct. But, you know, in my 9 years, and I've served 9 years now on the Select Board, you know, I volunteer in town, not just as a Select Board. I do Meals on Wheels, which, by the way, I will throw a little plug. They're always looking for volunteers, so if you have time, the seniors would really love to have you deliver Meals on Wheels. But I volunteer in numerous fundraisers across the town. This year I did 2 at the Sheehan School. I've done the hockey tournament, volunteering my services. I volunteer every year at the Westwood Day Road Race, so for the kids as well as the adult race that happens the afternoon. You know, my 9 years on the Select Board, we've done some great things. Probably the thing that I'm most proud of is the Islington redevelopment area. For those of you that have been here, when I first came, I was outvoted 2-1 on the redevelopment because the neighbors didn't want it. Knowing that, I decided to use my legal skills. I'm a practicing attorney now for 35 years. I represent injured workers and families for both workers' comp and Social Security disability. So I continued to negotiate, and we were able to get a beautiful thing down there. When it first came out of the committee, and there were 12 of us, the vote was 11-1. Guess who the one was? So what we did from then is it came out with 28 apartments. We got negotiated down to what the neighbors wanted. We got down to a CVS without a drive-through from 15,000 square feet to 10,000 square feet. We were working with the area to change over and do the new Islington Library. All of those things came from negotiation with the developer and with the town to get there, and I was fortunate enough to be able to lead that committee. So over the time in my 9 years, we've done a lot of great things in town. We've put in a new fire station, we've put in a new police station, and we put a new Islington Library at no cost to the taxpayers, all done under Proposition 2.5 without a need for an override.
Thank you. We'll now go to the first question, and Michael, you will answer
Sure.
the first question first. The town is engaging in discussions with Hale to permanently restrict land for conservation, provided a significant financial investment is approved by the voters. What is your current thinking on these ongoing conversations?
So it's interesting because, I guess the cart is kind of before the horse. People want to talk about this right now, but as the select board member, I don't know what they're proposing yet. So it hasn't come to the public yet because even I don't know what they're proposing for the amount of money. Right now, they're asking for $10 million for some conservation restrictions, but they've not told us yet what that really gets us for the $10 million. And that plan is still being developed. Even as we sit here today, that plan is still being developed. And I would never take it to the taxpayers of this town to say, we need $10 million without being able to tell you what you're going to get for it. And so that's been the holdup at this point in time. It will come before the town. There will be more public meetings about it. And I will be able to tell you exactly what that money is getting for us, where the land restriction is, how much of it is restricted, what the town actually gets for it. And until that's placed before us, it's really hard for me to tell anyone where we can stand on it until there's a plan. So that's why you haven't heard about it, even though you hear about it.
Thank you. Joseph?
I'm very excited about the Hale proposal. Being on the Conservation Committee, I signed many conservation easements and restrictions. And as Michael said, there's more to be learned there. I agree that not all the facts are known yet, but I must say I believe so strongly and so passionately in preservation of open space in this town. I think Hale provides a wonderful opportunity for all ages. And I'm excited about it, but I also want to learn more, as Mike has said.
Thank you. And the next question will be starting with you, Joseph. The Community Preservation Act allows cities and towns to create a fund supported by a surcharge to preserve open space, historical preservation, affordable housing, and outdoor recreation. Though it has been voted down by voters in the past, given present and future needs of the town, would you be in support of bringing this idea back to the voters for review and consideration? Joseph.
I think that act is very exciting. Let me explain it this way. In the medical center and hospital world, we review all of our policies every 3 years. You step back, you take a look, and you review it. I believe the same holds true for this act as well, that it may be time for us to step back and take a second look at it. There are some high points in it. I think the fact that I believe 55% of the communities in Massachusetts have adopted it. I've seen some wonderful work come out of it, and I guess my answer would be we probably ought to revisit that again.
Thank you. Michael?
So twice that came up in my 9 years about the Community Preservation Act. The only bad news is that the state has now watered it down. In other words, if you weren't in first, you're not really getting the same bang for the buck that many did who were in it. I think what happened when the town brought it forward the first time, it was too high. In other words, it's a tax that everyone in town pays, and then the state at one point used to match it 100%. The town came in, I think, at 2%, and that was just too high to start. The last time that we proposed it, I said perhaps we could come in at 0.5%, just to get people on board, to see what we can do with the money that is matched from the state. But now we're running into the fact that it's underfunded, and it's not really making the same progress that it did. But unless you're in the game, you can't have a piece of the puzzle. So I think that we need to get in, even if we get in at 0.5% and then look at it and show what kind of results we have from it, then perhaps in the future we can go to a full percent or 1.5% or the 2%, whatever it might be that the voters decide. But it needs to be something that we consider because, unfortunately, because we weren't in early, we've missed out on a lot of money up to date at this point in time. So it's always willing to go back, and it's the voters that decide. We can show people what the past has done for us, where it's come in, what other communities have done with the money, how much they were matched, and then show them now what that is from the state. Where is that money coming from? What can you do with it? And should we really get in the game? And that's what that will have to be decided by the voters. But, until we get that information to put it before you, we really don't have any information.
Thank you. The next question, starting with you, Michael. Within the past 2 years, a new comprehensive plan has been adopted by the town. What specific areas in the comprehensive plan would you prioritize?
Wow. I suppose it's really, what's really interesting, when that comprehensive plan came in, the hardest part about it is there are conflicting parts in town. In other words, some is about development, land development, and some is about community preservation and preserving the green space that we have. Clearly, we can't have both if we want to keep our taxes low. So I would like to find that balance, and I think it is a tough balance, much like it's balancing the school budget versus the municipal budget and what we need in town. So the comprehensive plan, I think, needs to have more development in the areas that we can develop to keep our taxes that much lower and to make our school system better, to have the funds to continue to do it. We have a lot of green space and we will preserve that, but areas that need to be developed, anyone who's looking at the land on Everett Street, that is a possibility to soon be developed as well. Any place that we can develop in town, that's where we need to bring in more commercial business. Right now, we have a split tax rate. If we don't continue to add to that, then we will no longer have the split tax rate. So it's a balance, and I think that the land development of that is already there is where the priority should be.
Thank you. Joseph?
I was on the comprehensive plan twice, and each time open space and recreation came out on top. Each time. I think preservation of open space, I heard it loud and clear at all the groups that I participated in, and the other thing were recreational opportunities for our youth. And listening to the previous school board members, I think they would agree that for our youth's mental health, recreational opportunities can work wonders. So from the comprehensive plan, the two that I worked on, open space and preservation of open space and recreational opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a follow-up to this question, and we'll start with you, Joseph. What is your position on completion of sidewalks on Gay Street, given money has already been invested in the design phase?
Coming from the healthcare sector, I have to tell you, I'm very much in favor of sidewalks in our community. I'm very much in favor of a sidewalk on Gay Street. And I've discussed this at length with our DPW director, and he knows and others know in this room firsthand how strongly I believe in sidewalks. So I am in favor of that.
Thank you. Michael?
Well, since my wife is here, I'll tell you, she works for Mass DOT and spends most of her time doing sidewalks, complete streets, and for the safe routes to school. That's how she spends her time, so there's no doubt about it. In fact, we have a project that happened at the Downey, and we have other projects that are in the process, and complete streets, we just actually funded the money for Booth Drive to Canton Street, for that little section that does not have a sidewalk, and the kids who walk down from certain areas in town where I used to live on Phillips Brooks Road, that was the only section of the road that did not have a sidewalk. So as much as the Gay Street is there, it's funded. I mean, it's not funded, that's everything but funded. It is designed, the money has been paid for the design, and it just has to sit there until the voters are ready to vote on it. And I expect that that will be coming up soon. The problem that we have is we have competing interests in town. I can tell you the top three right now would be Hale Reservation, sidewalk on Gay Street, and a new fire station. The question is, where does all of that money come from for all of those things? And it'll be up to the voters to decide where the real priority is.
Thank you. The next question, we will be starting with you, Michael. Would you be in support and advocate for a shuttle bus/van service like other towns have done so that residents of all ages and abilities can independently get around town and at the same time relieve parking or congestion problems?
There's no doubt about it. We've been working with this for regional for a while. In fact, there is a regional bus that is in charge with Canton and Norwood, but it needs to be still developed. Steve has been working on it for years. To get a transportation system in town other than the COA vans driving them back and forth would be a great thing. Would also help our business down at University Avenues, to people could just jump on the bus and be down at University Avenue in 15 minutes. So yes, I'm in favor of transportation, and especially public transportation that can make it easier for both our senior citizens and our youth to get around town, instead of to have a walk where we don't have sidewalks and putting themselves at risk throughout town. So I know Steve has been working on this, Steve Olenoff has been working on this for years to try to find regionalization of buses for our towns working together. So thank you, Steve, for the work you're doing.
Thank you. Joseph?
I'm in favor of the shuttle buses. When I was working full-time, I bicycled from Westwood into work at Beth Israel. I went through an industrial park in Needham, and I can't tell you the increase in the number of those shuttle buses that I saw in that Needham area. So we may be a little bit behind the 8 ball on that, and I agree Steve's done some terrific work on that. I would be in favor, and things have changed for the better in my mind, so I would definitely be in favor of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next question, we start with you, Joseph. What actions can the town take to make it more resilient to climate change, and what specific sustainability measures should the town consider?
Resiliency is very, very important. I happened to participate in a meeting with some consultants in the town's DPW on this. I'm not sure everyone recognizes the vulnerabilities that we do have in this town because of the streams and the dams and those sorts of things. So I'm very much in favor of preparing for any untoward events. In the hospital, we prepare for that regularly. As far as resiliency, I'm very impressed with the work that's been done up at the or is going to be done up at the high school. I'm impressed with the solar panels. I think we all have to weigh in on this. We're in this together, and I'm certainly in favor of those types of projects.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you. Well, since I've been on the select board, we are adding more electric charging stations throughout town, funded through Eversource, so that the town is not picking up the dollar for it, that Eversource actually is. We've added solar panels. We're going to put them at the senior center and over the high school parking lot, and including one over the field in the back. It slips my mind on the name, but so that anybody who watches that back soccer field, you'll now have shade during most of the afternoon games. So there's a lot of planning that went into it. We, when I originally was on, we hired Tom Philbin, and Tom has turned out to be the greatest asset that we've ever had to this town. Tom has continued to work to find a way that we can continue to lower our footprint. So Tom is doing excellent work. He meets with us all the time. He keeps us informed. For those of you that know, we just came up with the electric plan for in town that everyone was brought into, or had the option to weigh in, not brought into, let me just go back and say that everyone had the option to weigh out, to get out. You could still get out at any point in time, but we are actually saving our residents a lot of money with our new plan. So WEAC worked on that, for those of you that don't know, and you have the option, and it's turned out to be a great plan throughout the state, and it's guaranteed for the next 26 months. So hopefully everyone's in on that.
Thank you. Did you answer that question, Joseph?
I gave it a very astute answer.
I think you did. I'm getting to the end.
That's the best answer of the day. Thank you.
We have one more question before we go to closing statements.
Oh, now I got to work on it. Okay.
Right, and you better get it right.
Okay. Pressure's on.
And we will be starting with Michael on this one. With climate change an issue we have to deal with now, how do you propose we consider our carbon footprint in Westwood with projects we approve?
Well, we've already started with the new elementary school to try to make it a zero carbon school. So we are continuing to work on this on all municipal buildings, and we started with the school. So we are continuing to look at different ways throughout town, especially on new buildings and renovations as to how we can fix that. We're sitting in a library that was got a platinum award or a silver award, I forget, from the town at the time, throughout the state, because we are, as a community, continuing to work on this all the time. It's not something that you take pride in once and that's it. We continue to do on every single new building and every possible renovation that happens in town. How can we continue to make our carbon footprint that much smaller? So we are continuing to do that. We have been, as I said, we have Tom Philbin helping us lead us through this. When Tom retires, I'm sure we're going to have to fill that slot because it has turned out to be one of the most important things that our town has done in a long time, so.
Thank you. We'll now go to the closing statements from the candidates. Oh, I'm sorry.
We do have one.
Oh, we have one more question, and
Oh,
you get
great.
to answer this one, yes. Sorry, I apologize.
No problem, no problem. I think we all have to do something to reduce our carbon footprint. And Westwood has done something that's many of you may not be aware of, is that we have adopted the stretch program, which has a threshold that if it is exceeded, certain steps need to be taken as far as energy conservation. So we have adopted that at town meeting. We also have Mass Save, which is played up regularly, and we have worked on the solar panels. So I think as a community, we have done work towards reducing our carbon footprint. Thank you.
Okay, we got another question came in, and you will go first this time, Joseph. The question is, I've seen an increasing number of adult pedestrians on Clapper Tree Street. In the absence of sidewalks, what can we do now to make it safer?
I have to tell you, we're very, very fortunate in this town to have a DPW director that is so committed and works well with the select board on traffic calming measures and those sorts of things. I can't sing his praises enough, and that I would certainly work with him if I was elected on addressing those sorts of issues on Clappertree Street.
Thank you. Michael?
What's a possibility to do now, and I know yesterday when I was driving down Clapboard, it is awful tight. In fact, there are a couple pinch points along the way, and perhaps what we need to do is like we do for bike lanes, is at least give us a pedestrian lane along the road. That might be the only thing that we can do at this point in time, but it's something to think about because we do it for bikes, we do it for everything else. Why not do a smaller path for pedestrians? You know, it's not, and those pinch points is not wide enough to actually put anything in the road itself, except for markings. It's really that tight. It's one of the worst designed streets, obviously, pedestrians. Maybe it was only horses at that point in time, but it was never really designed for pedestrians. So, cars, thank you, Marsha. And so, you know, from that pinpoint, there's not really a lot that we can do except perhaps striping.
Thank you. Now we will go to closing statements, and we will do reverse order from the opening statement. So we will starting with you, Joseph.
I love Westwood, have made some very special friendships over the years. And in case you can't tell, I'm not a politician, but I am extremely passionate about what I believe in. Every town committee meeting I attended, I came prepared. When COVID-19 struck, I was working as the director of respiratory care at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, but I didn't hesitate to go up to the ICUs and work side by side with my therapists in the intensive care units. It was literally all hands on deck, and I saw some remarkable courage. I am not afraid of hard work. I'm not afraid to roll up my sleeves to get the job done. I believe I'm in a very unique position because I've not only worked in the public sector, but I've also worked in the private sector. There are unique challenges to each. I will bring experience navigating all of those challenges to the select board. Listening to you and respecting your concerns are very important to me. No issue is too small to call to my attention, and I'll do my best, as most of you know, to help you in any way I can. I've worked for the town, served on many town committees, sponsored many articles at town meeting. My record speaks for itself. I am asking you to vote on April 25th, and I promise you I will do my very best. I would be honored to serve as a member of the select board. I look forward to hearing about what issues are most important to you. And regardless of who you decide to support, please vote. Your voice matters. And thank you to all very much.
Thank you. Michael?
Thank you. So I've had the honor of serving the last 9 years, and in fact, when I first came in, people thought that, you know, change might be good, might not be good. Well, change proved to be good for the town in a couple of respects. First of all, I've been a practicing attorney for 35 years. So when a lot of things come before us, mostly contracts with different places, as an attorney, I'm able to read those contracts, I'm able to decipher them, I'm able to ask the right questions, and why certain clauses are not contained in them. and what they should be contained in them. I'm able to use my negotiating skills. Up until this year, after the pandemic, every contract has been straightened out from the day one, and we hadn't had any issues as far as any contracts within town. But also, I've used my skills to negotiate 2 pieces of property. We bought 5 acres from the First Parish Church for under $1 million, and we recently purchased the American Legion for $750,000. Those are properties that the town has for the future for their use. For those of you that don't know where the First Parish Church is, that would be behind the baseball field at the high school. That property now belongs to the town for our future use, and I was able to negotiate a deal that the town is able to purchase that land. I volunteer throughout town, not just on election year or any other time. I'm here all year. For people that have been at many of the fundraisers in town, you know that I'm there. And I'm doing it because I like to do it, and I want to help and want to make this town a great place to stay. My experience and something I've learned and I try to take to heart. A couple of years ago, my daughter graduated from Bentley University, and after the pandemic, we went to Fenway Park, and let me tell you, it was cold. It was colder than opening day this year. And there was a speaker there, the woman who was speaking on behalf of the college gave me this quote, and forgive me, I didn't write down who said it, but I've taken this to heart. Argue like you're right, but listen like you're wrong. And as a select board member, that's what I try to do. I try to listen to what people have to tell me. If you watch the select board meetings, you know that, first of all, I'm not afraid to state a minority opinion and even vote that way if I think it's in the best interest of the town. But I do understand, what's involved in this seat. I think I've done a good job in the last few years, or the last 9 years, and I'm asking for your vote on April 25th. So I appreciate we continue to do this. Our town is a great town. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good job, young man.
I don't know if Sheila wants to make any closing remarks. Just remind everyone that the election, that the last day to register to vote is April 14th and 15th. I don't know why there's 2 dates. April 18th is the last day to apply for an absentee or mail-in ballot, and April 25th is the vote. And for select board, you will be voting for 1 position for 3 years.
And just one last comment I wanted to make.
I thought you meant